Hi, welcome to my video. I had it on mute and I'd recorded quite a bit, so I'm back to record some more without the mute button on. So this is Writing on the Wall. It's where I share my everything and anything from psychic knowings to just annoyance and things I want to talk about, remote viewing, anything that comes to mind that I want to put out on here. This is where it is at. And so it's been an energy that has been really laying heavy on me, not in a bad way, just a very intense way for quite some time. And that is the energy of the High Priestess, and knowing that there's more that I needed to discuss than even just the card in itself. So this is where I'm going to dissect some of the meaning of the card of the High Priestess, the Major Arcana number 2. But of course, it isn't going to be in entirety and in all, because that's what I love about tarot. That they can be applied to each and every experience that you have, and you can continue to find new things even when you've been using them for years and years, like I have. You can dissect them from the number codes to the color codes, to the stance, to every there's codes within, and that is an ancient art, and it is an ancient art in the occult spiritual world. If you look at all of the beautiful paintings on top of cathedrals, let's say, there is esoteric knowledge, measurements, of the pi of phi represented in the vases, in the ceiling paintings, in the canvases, that literally can align from, if you look at the video I did a while back, and I must do another one with the awesome David, who wrote Star Myths World. And this is where check out his website. This is where he goes out through the book, which is an awesome book, and shows how all of these vases and things and paintings in our physical reality are literally representative and measured, concisely, represent constellations above us and the stories that go with them. And so the tarot is just like that. It is an ancient art that nobody knows quite exactly where it came from, but we know it works, and we know that it has a lot of things that can help us with the experiences that we are having here to level up and to unlock those things that we've quite obviously, for a great deal, forgotten. And with that forgetfulness of knowledge and wisdom, we are lessened in power. So it is my mission to learn as I go. And when I learn as I go, I want to share it. I want to put it out there to help others do the same thing. So take what resonates and leave what doesn't, but there shouldn't be too much to leave, actually, because this is just a dissecting of the card itself and what has been laying heavy on me as to the correlation of this card with what we are going through now. So if you are to look at the High Priestess card here, if you to look at it, it represents the feminine, psychic, and immense sexual power. So that's the two for a start. It is the hermetic principle of the laws of duality. And so within that, we look at Persephone, that story of where she dwells in the underworld, but then in the spring reemerges and then goes back to the underworld for the winter, and that's when the winter breaks in. And so that is dualistic. She comes to life in the spring and the light and the color, and then goes into the darker aspects, the darkness of the underworld, to sort of be there, to dwell, to hibernate. And so if you look at the laws of polarity, if you look at them, they are about the opposites. They're about two different sides in conflict, two different sides sitting on either side of the table in a state of argument. And so we see that the number 2, the major arcana of the High Priestess, does represent in a great deal the Hermetic principle of polarity, the dualistic nature that we find ourselves in. So I'll just share the screen. 1 second, share screen. Faster at that. I want to actually put it in full. So how do I new share? So how do I do it in full? Bear with me, because I'm just going to try pressing this one that I haven't pressed before. Nope, that gives me a whiteboard though. I didn't know I had that. 1 second, new share. I'm sorry, this was all going to be also sleek. This one. Okay. So I think you can still see me then, but I'm only in a small window, so I shouldn't get in the way. So this is the High Priestess card. So if we look at the going through just the card itself, if we look at the blue here, oh, sorry, it's not depicted very well. Okay, that is far too thick, Jennifer. Yikes. Brush editor. There we go. So if we were to look, if we look at this, the blue here, so this speaks to strength, and it speaks to healing. So then we've got this, we've got the spiritual fire that she holds, hidden very much so under a lot of cloth. There's a great deal of this cloth covering it, and that's very meaningful for a second. Then we have the depiction here of the pomegranates, and again, this isn't in entirety because there's more things that represent these same things that I'm discussing that you can pull apart in different experiences, in different aspects. So we've got the pomegranate, so that would sort of speak to the divine womb, and also passion, you know, the portal. And so, but this curtain that is over here that has the pomegranates on it is like a veil. And so this hides the secrets of the divine principle. So this also hides the secrets. It's an entry point that you must level up to in order to pass through. There's a lot we can say about that, about the sexual nature of the divine feminine high priestess, but actually I think I'll do another video on that. I'm not going to forget, actually. Level up, so remember. So we've got all of these different things already. We see her crown. Now, in a lot of the cards, some cards anyway, it's a 3-tiered crown, but it speaks to a higher energy, a royalty, a knowing. And so when we've got this, I need to move that. And so when we've got this headpiece on, you see here that these horns would represent the Taurus bull. So that again, but more so, it's representative of the womb, because you see here we have the entry point, we have the fallopian tubes, and here we have the womb itself. And so it is also about the womb. So there's a lot in this card that is about the portal, the womb, the the world, because a womb becomes a world. And they can go up in size and down in size from the physical womb of a woman, where the child inside, that is that child's world, and it is a giant in its world. And the law of duality, the child is born into this physical world, and all of a sudden becomes a miniature amongst giants. And so that is, again, the law of creativity and duality, which is a beautiful, wondrous thing, and also such a hidden thing as to why sometimes, especially when we've made such a mess up, to be honest. So the dualistic side of things is to the extreme, which is what I want to try and help to stop. So we've also got here, it is her magical occult power that she has underfoot here. So she stands on top of the hidden powers, the hidden cycles of the divine feminine, powers, cycles of the divine feminine. Again, going back to the womb, the cycles of a female in this physical reality, the cycles of the moon, the cycles of nature. And so we've got here a lot already to unpack, but she's also looking straight ahead in confidence. This is because she has absolute confidence in her ability to know the occult mysteries of the hidden worlds, the hidden worlds, you know, all of those things that we know are there, but we don't always see. Spirit world, spiritual world, I meant to put, I didn't have room. So we've already got quite a bit here. And so then we speak to the feminine principle of duality. And we go to the fact that she's covered up almost like a young girl would be. And this would symbolize virginity. Again, the blue symbolizing virginity with innocence, but then also the dualistic nature of her being the old crone, and that being of wisdom and isolation. And so we've got the separation as well in the virginity, in that there's a separation from the secrets of being an adult, coming into sexual activity. And also then there is the isolation of, you know, that the old crone that, you know, like Persephone, goes down into the underworld, and so and isn't quite as busy. And so then we have the what else have I got put down here? She's looking straight ahead because she has the confidence of the spiritual world and all of the keys to the secret doctrine. And this is where we see the concealing of her very much so. The rest of her, apart from a one hand, a partial hand, and face, everything else is covered up. But she's looking straight at you. She's got confidence that she can go down with any body and put down the spiritual laws, the spiritual rules. And so if we go then to the fact that if we go to the pillars, and this is what has been very much so put in my consciousness to talk about regarding the High Priestess and what she stands for. I'll just find that layer editor. And so if we were to wipe that, and then we go to the fact that we have these two pillars behind her, and it's it would represent Boaz and Jeshin, which is why we see the two initials on the pillars. No clothes, I want to be on that layer. Here on the pillars. Now we see that in this card the colours not come out quite as easily, and in this card we see that there's a lighter and a darker, but in other cards this would be white and black in the two pillars. And so it speaks to the dualistic nature, those opposites, the polarity, the opposites sitting on either side of the table in conflict, in argument. but it also speaks to so much more that would be a key to us not being in the position that we are in as a collective, if we had only not lost this knowledge and not lost this wisdom. And so, if we were to look at Freemasonry and other secret societies, they have all worked really hard to hide the kinds of secrets that this card in itself holds, about the opposing forces, about the secret doctrine of the divine feminine principle. And so, and there's reasons for that, because when this kind of knowledge is exalted, revered, and known to children and adults alike, there would not be any kinds of controls like we see today. They would not be able to take hold, because very much so is that although this is a hidden energy, it's not in the physical. We can see that you can't see any feet here, and that would represent the fact that it's not an earthbound energy. It's in the consciousness, it's in other realms, and it's not earthbound. But it should very much so be a part of the earth via us as the conduit, for sure. The wisdom of it and the knowledge of it, for sure, should be within us and used to express a reality, in as a conduit, energy going through us. And so this is where they have done this deliberately. They've worked really, really hard in particular to hide away the divine feminine principles and the hidden secrets of. Because this would be the structure that reality can be built on really, really well, because it speaks to what we are dealing with in continuously. And so without this knowledge, without the wisdom and knowing of this card, of the energy of this card, and what this, all of the other energies that this card represents, but are the same teachings, is that we find ourselves in a lawless land, because where she knows the divine principles, where she knows the divine natural laws, where she holds this scroll here, where she knows all of this, then she isn't. That we see that we are living here without her in a very manufactured, lawless land. So we've got a very manufactured, lawless land, but it actually is covered up dualistically by many layers of laws. So plus many laws. But those laws do not adhere or go with the knowings that she holds of how things actually work well. This is because they've gotten rid of this, because many of their laws that protect them in the elite circles would not make sense, and we would not have allowed them to be brought about if we had kept a hold of this knowledge generationally. We wouldn't have accepted it. We would have seen that these many laws don't actually match natural law, and therefore don't do much good for our physical reality at all. And so we do facilitate this by not reclaiming this knowledge and not truly knowing this knowledge again and keeping hold of it. We allow them to have this free for all, to be able to create these systems that are not of natural law, but are of a very manufactured law, which has then knocked nature out of the gate. Look at how much pollution we cause, needless pollution. And so then, if we were to look at this, we have done this also generationally, by giving it away and by not standing to reclaim it back. So we see that where we've lost the wisdom of how to apply the divine feminine principle of the High Priestess, we have facilitated them to keep a hold of this knowledge and allow us to deal with these layers of many laws in our physical reality. But actually, they use this knowledge behind the scenes to create the opposing forces, that because they've got the wisdom to apply it, they've kept a hold of the knowledge. So they very much so are continuously applying these two pillars. And you better believe it gets deeper. These two pillars are very important as to how they are applying them to our reality for their betterment, but not for the betterment of nature. We see that, and not for the betterment of humanity. We see that, not for the betterment of animals. We see that. And without this divine principle in place, to be honest, we've become a bit of a hell, because a hell on earth, because without the wisdom and knowledge of this beautiful divine feminine principle, we see things like the child abuse being done. We see the kinds of abuses that we are willing to do to each other. It's because we are void, we are lacking as a collective in this number 2 major arcana. We are truly, I can't say it enough, we've fallen very far away from the secret knowledge of the divine feminine principle that is this card. And so today, instead of the pillars of opposites working together, if you think of this also as let's clear this. Let's see, where else do I want to be? Okay, if you see today, if you see the pillars, they would represent also within us. So close. I'm not doing this very smoothly, sorry. So within us is the representative of the 2 snakes. Obviously, the Kundalini energy. 2 opposing forces that, when brought together with wisdom and knowing how to use them, which is why we look back to the curtain, that the neophytes need to work their way up to this level, otherwise it'll break them, in order to engage with the Kundalini energy. Now, to do that, you have to be in a balanced place, because you are going to enter into the occult knowledge, the occult secrets of engaging your Kundalini energy, the 2 opposing forces that can be sitting in argument, in a state of argument with each other. But when you're leveled up, when you know how to use them, you use this as you would use friction and flint to a fire to create a flame. You use the 2 opposing forces of the friction and the air to create the flame, and in order to have the substance be set alight and rise. And so we see the 2 opposing forces with the 2 snakes being engaged to create the momentum, to rub off one another, bounce off one another as they rise up throughout the body, throughout the energetic body and around us, like a torus field, like a donut, going back in at the feet and creating that cycle. And it's an amazing feeling when you know what you're doing. It's an amazing feeling when you are entering into this occult space, having leveled up and not just trying to play around with gods and goddesses energies without leveling up. It's like a drug dealer, a low down type person. And I'm not saying all drug dealers, I don't think, for a minute, I'm just saying, imagine the image of a really just not so nice person speaking to the likes of a lady walking down the street. It would not work. It's not going to end pretty. But if you have leveled up in both your divine feminine aspect and your divine masculine aspect, you are then meeting up your two snakes at a level of neither one is in worship of the other, from a level playing field, so to speak. And so we also see that on the outside, that would then be applied. We would be acting in divine balance on the outside, because from within, so without. So on the outside, we would be in absolute balance with those around us and nature, you know, everything. And so there would be balance and respect, because these two snakes have to meet with respect. Just as the story with the two characters I was just saying, if there's no respect there, you know, as somebody who is low down on life, you know, on the ladder, but is of a good heart and has lived and learned and grown within their experiences, regardless of affluence or of university degrees. If that type of person is to meet up with somebody who has grown and expanded and learned also, but may also have the extra bump of the university degrees and be seen as a lady, then you're going to see that those two can meet up, and those two can be opposing forces and actually be the right kind of friction to rise up, to level up the playing field. And so there must be a respect. And so when you're acting in balance, you respect others on the outside and they respect you. Sometimes they don't even know why. You just give off that energy that you demand respect. Why? Because you have gone through the gauntlet of facing your opposing force with respect, and you know how to channel that energy now. And so fly on the page. And so today we see that they both train in their life to rise up and raise each other up, to be the friction. And so today we see that people don't have this knowledge, so they don't know how to apply it. So you see on the outside violence, a lack of respect, divides. So where before, if these two snakes, they're divided, they're opposing forces, but because there is respect there, and you know, they're both reverence given to each other, the friction can be good to raise them up, and so there's a union there, which then creates this balance for the outside effort to be seen on the outside. And so without this, we see that there is this violence, this lack of respect, and there are further divides. And so the more the more they come at each other, the two opposing forces, you know, imagine them coming at each other, bouncing off each other, and more each time it gets worse, they bounce further and further back with each action and each interaction that they have, because they're not meeting with a kind of respect and reverence, because they don't know what they have within, and they haven't trained what they have within to create this. So where the Kundalini snakes that on the inside would then come to the outside, if you imagine, they bounce off each other, but instead there's a very short divide between there's a very short space of divide before they're coming back together. That is how they rise up. And so you can picture that then this is a self-feeding energetic tool coming out like a torus field back through, you know, like this donut that is then going around the person, which gives off this energetic field of a demanding respect. Why? Because you respect yourself. Your two inner most divine opposing forces respect you respect yourself, because you have gone through the gauntlet and continue to go through the gauntlet to grow and learn, so that you can enter into the number 2 major arcana, the High Priestess. And so this is how they know they've had a huge effect on how they can manipulate the collective, because without this knowledge, they sit back there, if you can imagine, they sit back there with they know the two pillars of knowledge. They've got the two pillars of knowledge. They've known that, and they pass it down in their secret societies. So they know how to apply it. They are applying it on their inside. So that is how you see in this construct, even with everything so many of us as truthers know that these secret societies have gotten up to in our governments, through the religious systems, even with all of that, they still get this level of respect, because they've applied the knowledge that is ours to apply, but we don't do it. And so they still get this level of respect, because not because in the 3D we would say they actually deserve it, but on a whole it's because they are putting out this torus field of we're engaging our inner opposing forces, but instead of us doing the same thing, they are like puppets holding the puppet strings of many puppets. And so they are applying this knowledge to the many puppets, making us dance like Pinocchio, because they know how to imbalance somebody, because they know the esoteric knowledge of how we would naturally be balanced with the divine feminine principle in its rightful place. They know that how they can interrupt that. They know how they can interrupt that field, and create, instead of union out of respect and reverence for one another, because we do that on the inside to ourselves, instead of that, they know that they're going to cause great divides, swords flying everywhere, clashing everywhere between all of these different people, because they just inject certain things into the consciousness, treat one sector of society real well, so they get treated very well, and then they'll for a little while treat this sector of society real bad, and then they'll turn it around. They'll realize that they haven't even treated them too well at all. They've made them work their fingers to the bone to get finance still, and feel like they've got to keep up with the Joneses and stuff like that. And they'll only do that for a very small percentage, let's say the top of this section of society that represents maybe a skin color, a certain skin color. And so they will, at one point, they'll have this sector of society with a different skin color looking and feeling angry, as they rightfully can be because of what's happening in their reality, feeling very low self-esteem, collective self-esteem. And so things, it's a kettle, it's a pressure cooker. And so on the upside, though, they'll see that these people start to fall for the trick. They'll fall for the trick that they are better than, and but because they are working so hard and don't really feel like they are better than, they want the conduit, the release to say, well, we're better than this. And so then judgments start to come in. All of these things create in divide. So there's a lack of respect because this section of society with one skin color thinks this section with another skin color just gets everything given to them, gets all of the chances given to them. And as I say, for good measure, they will do that to a small section of this society, i.e. a small section of this society will get handed mortgages very easily, whereas nearly all of this society will not. They'll have to jump through more hoops or pay more interest. So there's the lack of respect between the two, because these people here are indoctrinated to believe that these people here are hippie lazy, violent and do nothing. These people are predominantly, at the start of it, probably started to be violent to try and get some kind of equality or just survive. that they so there's these divides happening. So now you can picture these two sections of society like one of those desktop things, where you knock the ball and the other ball on the opposite side starts moving, and then eventually all of them start getting affected, and the two end balls are going real high at that point because of this impact that continuously happens on the inner few balls that are hanging. And so this is where you can see these divides get, instead of like the Kundalini snakes, instead of them being in argument with one another to create a leveling up, to create a reverence for one another, a respect for one another, to create a rising up, a growth and an expansion, we see that this is the opposite way, these horizontal lines of divide. And so this is where we are very much in this 3D now. We're stuck in this 3D of divided, which is where we would say united we stand, divided we fall. Never a truer statement. And so if we go to then, plus another one. So if we go to then, they've been dividing the very core of us by them knowing the two pillars of knowledge here. By them knowing these two pillars here, we've got that they have been dividing us to the very core from our inner Kundalini snakes, because the more we are then concentrated on the 3D and the frictions and the divides and the fears, then the less we are able to even engage on the inside, being very much trained and indoctrinated to look to the outside all of the time. And to the above us all of the time, as in the so-called powers that be, but more so the hidden secret societies that actually created them. And so we see that this is where they've been attacking to the very core of us, so that they can have the effect that is planned and knowing. Not to say that they don't make mistakes, they've made huge mistakes and rods for their own back in a lot of ways, but in general they pretty much know what's going to be going on, what crash in the economy is going to happen, because they'll always raise up the economy, won't they? Think of team, rise it up and rise it up and rise it up, and for the duality they'll crash it down. And so they know people get comfortable and complacent, so they know they can have a huge drop in people's vibrations, people's frequency, going more and more into fear, which is what they feed off. And so within this construct, we know that if they can attack the core of us, the two opposing pillars at the opposite side of the table within us, our two snakes, then we are far less likely to reach a level of consciousness to even enter into the realm of the High Priestess, where beyond that pomegranate veil, that pomegranate curtain, where we know the secrets of the hidden, of the spirit, of the within. And so with that being said, the reflection on the outside is frighteningly and worryingly, even though there's a lot of us who are aware and awake, and many people who've been waking up in particular, like an intense crash course over the last 2 years. The outside reality that we see is still a reflection of the many, many more numbers that do not have the connection to their within, that have not addressed their inner self from the root, to be able to level up, to be able to be in the presence of the divine secret principles of the divine feminine, the goddess energy of the High Priestess. This is where there's the truth and the lie, in that she is robed. If we go back to here, she is robed and very covered up and concealed. And also she is representatively covered up by the veil of this curtain, because it is dangerous. So because we've given this knowledge away, and with complacency and apathy, we're now in a place of, the comeback into this, the realm of this knowledge, of this wisdom, is that, you know, neophytes are dangerous when they enter into this knowledge. So now there's actually a truth and a lie, in that they say they're doing the world a favor by them being in control of this knowledge and no one else. Well, to a certain extent, we would need a certain amount of time, and we haven't got too much more time left, you know, to create a difference for the children that we leave behind. In that it's difficult because people coming into this knowledge, or people who have come into this knowledge who aren't neophytes, who have mastered themselves, are actually a threat then to the very divided, very asleep, not very conscious part of the collective that is still being puppeteered by these so-called powers that be. And so if we were to say, that, where's that one? If we were to say that, that we were to, this is where we're not just fighting the so-called powers that be now, as the awake, as the aware. We're actually fighting the very beings that we want to help the most, which is our fellow man and fellow woman. And they don't understand, because it's been so many generations of this knowledge being lost. And if not lost, worse, what they have done is they've kept these pillars of knowledge. They've used them to apply them to the reality. And so they've got many people being in this opposite, opposing energy. We can't help but not be, because of the duality that we live within. We see that relationships, they've broken down deliberately and very well. The family unit, they've broken down what relationships really should look like between two lovers, two parents, what we should really look like in our sexual power. And so we see, because of the lack of this knowledge, but them keeping it, we see that the amount of rapes, murders, that very much so can be associated many times to sexual assault, the degrading. Because you see, while the divine feminine female in this woman, in this reality, still had the knowledge of the number 2 high priestess, the duality within, women were to be feared. They feared them. So this is why they degraded them and defiled them so much, especially through organized religion, belittled them so much, because that was representative of the powerful beings, as in the females that knew this. They were a threat, which is why we see, you know, the witches' trials, because those who knew how to be in balance within, and therefore in connection to everything on the outside, they did have men who would do anything to protect this divine feminine. They did have those types of sons and daughters who would do anything to give reverence to their mother and help their mother. The family unit with this divine secret is strong. That is a threat to those that want to come in and become puppeteers of people. This is a huge threat. So by taking out this divine feminine secret knowledge from the consciousness of us, they have made it so that pretty much a free-for-all for them to mold and create and manipulate our reality that we live in. Because with this knowledge, this divine feminine, they had to degrade her and defile her, so her own children would attack her. You hear of children attacking mothers so that their own husbands would rape and murder them. That's what we're seeing today. This comes from the two pillars of knowledge that the Freemasons and other secret societies have hidden away and actually stolen from us. And instead of it being our greatest power, two snakes, they're the greatest power, which is this divine feminine and divine masculine energy, the two divinities within, to create this immense sexual power, which creates immense enlightenment. It is literally electricity, electrical sparks, tantalizing and tantalizing every nerve ending. It's every muscle getting a squeeze from the divine while electricity impulses through it. It's like having the greatest awakening at your beck and call each and every time. You know, when people get addicted to crack, they'll say, you know, and it's such a sad story because the first hit, the first feeling of euphoria, the first energy that they get, they're continuously after that, because it is that a manufactured euphoria. It's short, it's passing, and they're continually seeking to get anything like that first hit, which they never quite do. Yet with these divine snakes within, each and every time you awaken them, each and every time you play music to those snakes in that basket, in that inner sanctum, each time they come out of that basket, the base of you, and dance together, each time they do that, you get the same, if not more, of a hit of this euphoric enlightenment and connectedness, not just to the physical reality that you can see, feel, and touch and smell, but to the other realms, the other dimensions within you, around you. It's the most powerful thing that I can do and feel. So far, you know, and I would still seek to know more to add to the strength of my inner snakes. But it is the most powerful feeling, which is why you go back to ancient Egypt and you see them with the snake, the cobra on their head. Why is that? Because they, in their ancient knowledge, and their knowledge at the time, said that the cobra, you know, it's one of the strongest things they'd ever seen, because without no hands, no feet, it could rise up to tower above a man and stand its strength. They found that immense strength. They gave that immense reverence. And so this is how it's symbolized for them, that they knew. So they were doing Kundalini practices, because that's why they were representing the cobra on top of the head piece of the pharaohs, showing that he or she was an enlightened being. They'd found enlightenment from the within, and it shone out. And so with these two snakes, there becomes great power. When these two snakes are used against us and used by the neophytes, the non-knowing, so we've got like these puppeteers again, hijacking sort of, it's like a circuit board, whereas these two snakes are in our natural inner circuit board. They sort of come in between the two snakes and implant themselves to be whatever they need to be as far as divide. So with these two snakes used by neophytes, non-knowing, it's our greatest it's our greatest, how should I put it, weakness, I suppose. It's our greatest weakness. And so it is so important that we look at this knowledge, and I hope I'm getting across how deep this sort of unveiling of a vision of a thought process was for me, because it is huge as to how we acknowledge what has happened and what we have lost, but also how we fix it by reclaiming this knowledge. And I can tell you, at some points, it isn't going to be pretty. Because we're not just fighting these so-called powers that be that have absolutely cubed off our knowledge, put it in a cube. We are fighting the causation of what they have done, the causes of the results of what they have done through their causes to interrupt the natural cycle, the natural law. We see that we are fighting our fellow partner, boyfriend, husband, uncle, with rapes and murders of women going through the roof. We see that we are fighting people who have totally bought into the degrading and defiling of the divine feminine, and we are totally fighting with our fellow sisters around us, mothers around us, that continually sell themselves short because they don't know this power, this wisdom, this knowledge. They give of themselves to people sexually without discernment. Which causes, again, another whole host of, so literally, because this knowledge was stolen, and then not just stolen but used against us, because they kept the wisdom of how to apply it, whereas we lost the application of it, yet we still have these two snakes within regardless. So they're going to be in opposing forces. If you haven't got the wisdom, the music sheet, so to speak, the music to play those two snakes into synchronistic power dance, you're going to see them turn to poison. And that's what we see right now. We've got a whole cans of snakes all over the place in many different layers that are poisonous. The bite is poisonous. So even the very people around us that would, gain a great deal from us reclaiming this knowledge are the very people that are biting us with their poisonous snakes. And so we see that these two towers represent an opposing force. So as above, so below. She has the moon on her head, and she has the moon on the floor underfoot. Persephone coming above in spring and going to the underground in winter. So we see if these two pillars represent opposing forces, you can look at the most obvious, the sun and moon. And so the fire and what would be representative of the water, the moon, using the creating the changes in the sea, the waves, the cycles, the waters of the feminine, the with the cycles that she goes through physically. So we've got where these two are opposing forces, yes. So we see that, that in the daytime there's light and dark on the nighttime. They are opposing forces, but where they meet, there's a transmutation, not an attack. They filter into one another like the two snakes coming, like the two snakes dancing. They don't bounce into like a reaction. They phase in and out. And they even share so that neither one of them ever misses out. Because on one side of the world, the sun will come up and the moon will be very much more apparent. And on the other side of the world, it's, you could put here sun and moon here. Because they're sharing. So actually, in this great secret esoteric knowledge. This hidden knowledge, for want of better words, is that they're actually, in being in transmutation with each other, opposing forces does not mean what we see as opposing forces in our reality, as in two groups of people hating one another, two spouses hating one another, or loving one another, then hating one another. No, you see a transmutation into one another and sharing space, because neither one has to lose out here. The sun is continuously shining, just in different areas. The moon is continuously shining, just in different areas. And so they share the space. And so where they've made these two opposing forces into what we would depict as opposing forces. I want to kill you, I want to love you, I want to kill you. And you see that in imbalanced relationships even. These opposing forces mean something very different when it is understood as occult knowledge, hidden knowledge, in that, in giving over and space to the other side of you, in letting your divine masculine act when needed. It does not need to do what society has allowed these bastards to do. It does not need to degrade and defile the divine feminine within, and therefore the female on the without. When the divine feminine needs to be brought into engagement with intuition and psychic powers and emotional strength, the divine masculine does not need to be defiled and degraded and put to the back of the corner. No, it's sharing space. It's transmuting in and out each other. It's fading. It's like this. It's sort of like fading in and out. It's not like one big, it's not a bang in the middle. It's just a fading in and a fading out of one another. And that's how you would engage your two snakes, your divine feminine, your divine masculine within, in all things that you do all of the time, which would create a very different reality. It's like we have got a very manufactured matrix, a very manufactured overlay of false laws that do not make sense to natural law. Therefore, nature, us, is completely out of whack and out of balance with what we have allowed ourselves to be made to live by and look up to, yet does not make any sense and does not even give us any of the protections, really. It's been more of the causation of the problems that we see today, and these so-called powers that be making these decisions that they're making. I think the problem is, even in the so-called powers that be, governments have gotten so big, and yes, they're in the know, but they are not the beings that have taken away. It's the secret societies that have taken away this doctrine, this knowledge, and hidden it, stolen it from us. The organized religions, the Vatican, that has stolen it from us. So what we see even now, because this has gone on for so many generations through apathy and complacency, what we see now is we even have goons in the government, in places of power, that don't even know these secrets. They're not even the same types of beings as we would be led to believe. So they don't know, but they are passing down these rules that create even more divide and angry opposition, rather than opposition that works to give light to each other, to each side. And so but the perception is the reality. And so the more that we have people look out into this reality and see the very manufactured things of those puppets that I showed before. Is it this one? No, not that one. Scribble, heck, scribble. Where is it? No. Jenny. This one. where we see these puppets with these opposing forces, we see in just more, it's hard to come together now because there's it's hard to come together now because there's been just, why is it doing that? Unhide layer. There's been so many different implants from these so-called powers that be to create anger and opposition. So now we don't even know which direction we're coming or going in. And so this is where they have done a great deal of damage for sure. And so it's the hidden knowledge of the High Priestess that holds the wisdom of how to apply the opposing pillars and the two snakes, the Kundalini energy, to go up a level rather than do what we've done with those puppets. And unlike Persephone coming back up again, getting further and further into the lower aspects of the reality that we see today. We're not going up the ladder, we're spiraling down as a collective to reach that higher consciousness. This is where the power is found to heal yourself as well as others. It's within the Kundalini energy that there is a great deal of healing. It is within the application of the hidden wisdom of the two pillars within this card that creates the healing aspect of self, emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually, and of others, because those that you come into contact with when you're engaged with your snakes, when you know how to charm your snakes out of your basket, it exudes from you, and people learn from you. They learn the same secrets that you are living by, the divine feminine principle. And so then you would go into the divine feminine principle of the Empress card, which is then bringing that into the reality, into the three. But we're not on that today. So if you want to look at, let's say, plus, so let's say that we've got, I'll just close this one, sorry. Oh, no, I don't want to do that. But I've just figured out how to do something that I've been looking to do for ages for logo, so that's good. So if we go into like the Saturn energy, which I've talked about in a reading a little while ago, that came up real heavily on my heart to do. And so we look at, if we look at Saturn, we're looking at maybe a white bearded old man, which shows time, wisdom, age, taking more time to do things, because it's a big thing. It takes time to grow that long beard. And so that would be Kronos. And with this, we would see that on the other side, the opposing force would be a beautiful black woman. Two completely different sides, and that would be with Venus. If we look at that, that would represent Venus. And so we can look and say Aphrodite maybe. Here. And so in that story, they meet and they have a child, let's say. Not let's say, it is. And so this child then is where they meet these two opposing forces in this great show of strength of sexual activity that has created a child, a physical representation of that through this womb, through this field, this vortex. of energy that has gone all the way up and cycled round and all the way down and created that field of energy. Two completely different opposing forces, both Saturn and Venus, and the beautiful black woman and the white bearded old man. And so where Aphrodite would be representative of youth and freedom and wanting to express herself. So that would be quite all right in Kronos' eyes, who is protective and wants to watch her explore and know more of herself so he can know more of her. And so that would be a beautiful expression of two opposing forces creating something that actually doesn't represent what we are told right now in our construct. If we were to look at the Saturn that we sort of feel right now, and Venus that we in the collective, I mean, sort of are seeing right now, is that the woman is looked down upon, you know, defiled. I hate writing that about that. It's awful that we've got here. You know, there's a lot of violence towards them, and you know, seen as the complainer. And then we've got Saturn, who is, you know, overbearing. He's not just protective, no, he's overbearing. We've got the law, we've got the rules that keep changing because. And why is this actually? Why is this? Let's just stay with this actually, because the rules that keep changing. Saturn, Kronos didn't change the rules. He knows he's matured like divine wine in that he knows the rules, he knows his laws, and he knows what works. Yet we are supposed to be under the rule of Saturn, yet none of these rules, none of these laws work. If they did, we would not see all of this. And so, and everybody right now that we're seeing right now, it doesn't know the rules. Look at the last 15, 18 months to 2 years, all of the rules that have been changing. Look in the UK, nobody actually knows what they're allowed to do. Nobody knows. They're saying it's up to you to decide if you want to go on holiday, but you shouldn't, you know, but and you shouldn't, because we've put all these different restrictions on very cleverly, and actually we're going to give you the threat of being stranded over somewhere because we might put it into a red zone at the drop of a hat, which they've just done today. Nobody actually knows the damn rules. We've got people demanding that people wear masks and demanding to know why they're not, when actually that is against Saturn. That's against a law that they say Saturn has, the energy of Saturn has made itself. And so we see that when Saturn is actually, when Venus is defiled, the one side of the opposition, Saturn is defiled, because when the woman does not know herself, creation itself does not know itself, because the woman is creation. And so then we see that all of a sudden we've got, instead of two snakes, two opposing forces coming upwards, we have seen this spiraling down, because now we're bouncing off each other wider and farther, and it's more confusing the more the time goes on. So we see the woman does not know herself anymore, the man does not know her anymore, and so they are strangers that are opposing forces on the within and therefore on the without in our relationships, etc., etc. We also see that because the woman does not know who she is, creation itself does not know who she is. She is the carrier of creation. She is the manifester of creation itself. There's the spark given by Saturn, you know, as the male, and there is the actual physical, it's physical sperm, yes, but egg, spark and physical egg coming together. And then there is that physical womb of a physical baby, and it should be born of a woman who knows herself and who knows herself real well. because then creation itself, you get a confident child, you get a child that knows itself, you get a child that feels secure. Nobody on either side right now feels secure. Why? Is it because Saturn and Venus are these evil light beings? No, it is because we have allowed this hijack of our knowledge, of our pillars of knowledge, the divine feminine principle, the hermetic principles of polarity. We don't know how to use our poles. We don't know how to engage them. And so this is what we see. It is not that Saturn, so if we've got like Saturn up here and Venus up here, the two opposing forces, you know, that should be, we should be able to transmute the energies from such and whatever aspect, Saturn and Venus for now. But you know, we've got the masculine in Saturn and the feminine in Venus. So again, in these poles, this is the feminine pole, this is the masculine pole. With this, we should be able to transmute the ancient esoteric knowledge of these two beings of light and the wisdom that time has allowed them to gain in order to incorporate it in our inner poles, to then incorporate it in our reality here. What we have allowed to happen by this knowledge of the hermetic laws of polarity to be stolen with this divine feminine energy, what we have allowed to happen is that we have just allowed hijackers to put a great big veil over the energies and the knowledge that comes from here. So they take the certain aspects that work, they use them and bring them to here. But what we see is under their veil. So they keep that knowledge. So instead of us getting our natural inner standings within this experience, having the remembrance, they'll put in a veil, a layer over that, and then they are manipulating. So then we don't get anything from here. We just get manipulated frequencies from Saturn, infused into the divine masculine side, and we get manufactured energies from Venus infused into the divine feminine side. So you see that creation itself now, the reality itself now, is birthing, you know, for want of better words, babies, but not just babies, I mean just creation. We're birthing a lot of shit because we are actually birthing it from a not divine source. It's not a divine source that we are getting this from. It is from a very devolved sense of divinity, in that it isn't divine at all. It has been these hijackers that have put, and what's this veil? What is this horrible, disgusting veil? For everything that this has done, it does disgust me, but it's passionate and sharing the knowledge, so hopefully it gets to somebody. But if you see that this here, this would represent what was I going to say there? Polarity, masculine, feminine. So this would represent that we are getting division out of this. Division out of this. We are getting through organized religion, through organized gangs, so all of the law structures, systems, policing systems, social services systems. And why do they need to be there in the first place? They only need to be there because, you be sure, if we were to take a rubber and rub this out once and for all, get rid of these hijackers once and for all, and get rid of that which would try and interrupt our divine knowledge from our above through us to our very below. If we were to get that, then it would be all roses. We'd be birthing with beauty, abundance. We'd be birthing children who know themselves, so well that no force would be able to do what they've done to creation here. So through all of these systems and the other systems that they have built through organized poverty, science, medicine, all of those things. Look at medicine. We just got to look at medicine to see that they took all of our knowledge. That for the most part, it was the feminine, the females that knew that how to use the herbs, how to heal in that way, in different modalities, and of course that's what the so-called witch of then and today is, in the alchemist, to know how to put things together and how to apply that wisdom, how to apply that physical potion on a wound, how to apply the spiritual emotional strength for somebody who is forlorn, heartbroken. And so this would be what we would see instead of that. But instead of that, we have got all of these different organizations that interrupt this natural frequency that we would naturally have coming to our opposing poles on the within. And so you can see how this would then create the reality, birth the reality that we see today. So this is one of the ways, just one of the ways that they have manufactured and hijacked our reality through their devious thievery and maliciousness and lack of empathy in entirety. This is what it is being done. And of course, these people who are members of these secret societies are for a lot of the part victims also, because they are made to feel important, they are made to feel like this is the right thing to do, because look at humanity, it can't even look after itself, let alone its own child. And they look at humanity and they think, well, yeah, the neighborhood I grew up in, yeah, there was a lot of mothers that did not know how to look after their children. And so this is where they, catch people even within these societies to think that they're doing the right thing, to continuously keep the cycle going. So people's lenses of even Saturn and Venus, like the people's lenses of female and masculine, a male, the lenses are skewed, because we're looking through, when an optician slides those lenses in, one after the other, to find what glasses you need, they keep sliding in and then changing it over and sliding it in. They are literally putting those lenses over people's eyes so that we are not naturally gaining from the divinities above us, below us, and within us. We're not in true relationship with them. So there's no reverence there. We are allowing this, the Simpsons. So Simpsons, if you can make that out, do you remember the dome episode, and they're saying they're doing it for the good of them? Yeah, that's what they've done. So all of the frequencies that we should naturally be feeding off with their information stealing and information downloading, the natural things are bouncing off us. So when they say that, the world is a sectioned off prison, maybe it is. But that is only because in our consciousness on the ground here, we have given them the tools to build this fucking thing. Through our complacency, through our apathy, we have actually built the dome for them. And now they'll just open a hatch, at the top like they did, and drop in what they want and say it's from the divine. When for the most part, in many people's consciousness, the divine can't even reach them. The divine is screaming out to them from the within and cannot even reach them because they're under this dome. So one, know that you are super powerful if you are able to take in this knowledge that I've put down today, and know that you are super powerful if you are aware of the dome, let alone are able to reach out past the dome that is being created by the many into your higher consciousness. You are able to reach down, be not just above the dome, but below the dome, to reach into your higher consciousness there in your root. If you are able to do that, then know that you are here for a reason, and know that you are super powerful, because the spell work is strong here. And the lenses that they put over people's eyes are strong lenses. They're like those big jam jar glasses. The distortion is immense. So if you are even a little bit aware, but most of the people who listen to me are very aware, if you are connected to your divinity, to the divine within, and can connect beyond this dome and below this dome to the divine on the outside too, and can still see the divine within the nature, know that you're here for a reason. Find your reason, find your purpose, and go at it. Go at it like a mofo. And even that saying, actually, I shouldn't even say that. Because even in these little sayings, you know, that you don't mean anything by them, but that's like, motherfucker. The mother? You want to talk to me? Jenny, come on, do you want to talk? And this is me chastising myself as I do in private in front of you to show you that we've got to be so discerning right now to get past this dome in the entirety. In that, you know, I need to say to myself, why are you saying that? Especially during this lesson. And maybe there's a reason I did, because maybe I knew I needed to chastise myself for actually using that saying every now and again. Because anybody put in the word fuck and my mother in the same statement would get a punch in the nose. So I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't put it out there. So I bind it up. But this is where we need to be super discerning and look at our own steps before we tell anybody else to step. So I always tell myself how to step. Promise you that. And I'll even do it in front of you, just even if it's just to show, and that wasn't deliberate, but I'm not as good, clever as that, but, you know, to show that it's real strong, all of these things that have happened because of the allowance of the hijacking of the divine feminine secret doctrine. You know, we have to be super discerning to continually reach beyond this dome and eventually lift this dome, evaporate this dome. Isn't it ironic that we've got this goon too? It looks a bit yellow to me all the time anyway. But we've got this goon too, wanting to spray the divine, to spray the sky, to literally put a film over. They're telling you what they're doing. They love to tell you, and they've got to tell you in some ways. But literally, he's telling you, putting domes over you. They're telling you that you're in a petri dish. Now, this petri dish is bloody lovely. I love my garden. I love the petri dish that I'm in with the people that I know and love. But it would be lovely to be in true connection with many different petri dishes, which is what I'm feeling as it how it is. And to this just be the sky, where the sun rises and falls and the moon, you know, is seen. No sort of, none of the dome. It would be great to see this beautiful and awesome nature, if it's this beautiful, with the likes of him and the people, beings behind him interfering. What would it be like without? So I'm going to leave it there. I hope this resonates with someone, all of you. Hopefully, I hope it gives you some inner standings as to how to reclaim your knowledge back, and actually I hope I conveyed the depths of knowledge and wisdom that has been ripped from you, and it's yours. And the travesties that caused and has caused and is causing and will cause for the longer that it's outside of the inside of us in the many numbers. There's going to be duality here, but the duality doesn't have to be like this. You know how they say, oh, there's always going to be the opposing forces. Yes, but the opposing forces, as an alchemist, as a herbalist, you put two herbs together that oppose each other in the garden. They don't like growing together. You put them together in a potion, bam, they heal a wound. Because they're brought together in alchemy. They're brought together with wisdom and knowledge. So I hope that I've conveyed that enough for you to be able to grab a hold of this and use it for your greatness. And I really mean that. So I'll leave it here. Much love, balance, and wholeness. No doubt we'll be revisiting the divine feminine principle of the High Priestess, because there's still more that I can say about it. But this was particularly on how they've used their pillars. Now look at the secret societies, Freemasonry in particular, and look at the pillars that are depicted. It's not evil knowledge, it's our knowledge. Just for the most part, it's being used against us in an evil way, which is disgusting. So I'll let you go because the kids are playing and I can hear them, so I'm going to go and see them. Much love, balance, and wholeness once again. Oh, got a mic thing and I keep I'm sorry if this is an annoying sound, but I keep banging it because I'm not used to it. But I'm trying to get better. So anyway, I'll let you go. Love you.